Hello and welcome, I'm Arumba. Thank you for joining me. Let's play some Warlock 2, The Exiled. So, this is a new title from Paradox Interactive that will be coming out on April 10th, 2014. I have the privilege of playing the game early thanks to the fine PR reps over at Paradox. They gave it to me and a few other people who make videos on YouTube, so thank you very much for letting us have that opportunity, me in particular. So, I played Warlock 1 a little bit, not much, but I've played this quite extensively in the last day or two since I got the key, and I think it's a lot of fun. So let's dive right in and give it a shot. I'm just going to go over the options real quick because people might be interested in that. It does already have windowed mode available. We'll be playing in 1080p. I have the highest settings on for everything. Volume settings are a bit, most of the settings I will say are just a little bit sparse, but that's okay. We have 3 different settings for animation speed. We'll be playing on the middle option. We're going to keep the hex grid on, tutorial off. We're not going to show the intro movies, or I'm not going to have it autosave every turn. There is the possibility that it could crash, but I'm not really worried about it. There's going to be a room for modding in this game, which will be exciting. There's going to be room for multiplayer as well. And there's a spot in here available for like campaigns, but there aren't any available yet. I'm assuming that's because it's an early build. This isn't the release version, so this is not by any means a review of the full and complete game. Anything and everything could change between now and April 1st, or sorry, April 10th. There's also a spot for, looks like, fixed maps, if you wanted to play on a specific map. And then, of course, you can load games. We're going to be playing a new game. There are 5 difficulty settings. We can play as relaxed, what is a strategy game? Casual, sure I have heard about them. Normal, challenging, and impossible. I'm going to be playing on challenging. I did this, I've played 2 campaigns so far, and the first time I did it I got absolutely slaughtered, but then I copied the AI's strategy, and now challenging isn't quite so challenging anymore. There are 2 actual gameplay modes. We've got the Exiled and Sandbox. The Exiled is something related to the title, Warlock 2, The Exiled. What happens is there is this character called the United One, and the goal of the campaign, if you play in Exiled mode, is to defeat him or kill all the other Grand Mages, or Great Mages. Sandbox mode removes the United One from the game, and it's just you versus other mages, and you can specify what your victory conditions are. We'll be playing the Exiled mode simply because the United One is, I think, a pretty integral part of this title, and it could be fun. So we'll play on challenging and the Exiled mode. We'll go to the next settings. We can choose the universe size. We can go with small, medium, large, or extra large. This controls how many, like, sections of the planes that there are to play on. I like playing on really big maps like this, even though it makes the game take forever. In my own personal, like, single-player playthrough, I played on huge. That had just so much space, tons and tons of resources available. I bet that game would probably take upwards of 50 hours to complete. We'll play on large, just so that hopefully we can get something done in a reasonable time frame. And how many rival Great Mages? 1, 2, or 3? Why don't we just stick with 4? More enemies. Sounds good. And now we get to pick our character. Now there are a fixed number of available character icons. I'm wondering maybe at some point in the future you'll be able to put a custom portrait in. That'd be kind of cool. You can see the portraits here. We're not going to spend a lot of time looking at them just because I want to pick something and play. We will go ahead and play as this guy because he freaks me out a little bit. Talalokian. And we're going to have the race monsters. There are, I believe, 6 different races in the game. We'll click customize and take a look at that. Yes, there are 6 races. There are the Arethi Elves, the Humans, Monsters, Plain Striders, Svarts, and the Undead. And of course we can pick various symbols for our color. Blue is, I think, probably the best, personally. And then we get, basically we start off with 10 points that we can use to choose perks, or we can just use the preset, which is what he has. He starts with Lesser Heal, Lesser Weakness, Favor of Fervus, and he has the Lord of Kotels. So he gets a resource. This is like a tile resource that's going to be automatically in his first cities section. So he guarantees himself that he'll have a Kotel village. We'll customize, and we'll stick with monsters. We're going to make ourselves blue, though. And I don't actually care that much for the Kotel village. We're going to get rid of that. Favor of Fervus, I think, was pretty fun. There are a series of gods that we'll talk about in a little bit. Starting with one of these basically allows you to start working your favor in working with the god very early in the game because you actually have enough favor to cast some of the initial spells. If you don't select one of these favors, then it takes a good number of turns, maybe 20, maybe 30 turns, to actually have the ability to start wooing a god into allowing you to cast their spells. So I think Fervus is fine. I like bears, they're cool. We can start off with lesser heal and lesser weakness, or we can just flip that up, change that up. We have 4 points left. Casting speed is incredibly important in this game. So how about we just take Favor of Fervus and optimal number of cities +2. That's really powerful too. We could spend a lot of time going through every single one, but we're just going to pick Archmage. And I do want to apologize in advance if you have any difficulty seeing the red text in this game. I tried everything I could to make it so that negative red, like see there where it says upkeep -8, -8 gold, -1 food, -1 mana. It's something with the YouTube encoding process. It makes it difficult to read those thin little text red fonts. So if you can't read it, I'll be reading most of them whenever we see them. Alright, so we're going to start with Favor of Fervus and Archmage, and we'll talk about why that's important as we go. A unit cannot rest if there is an enemy unit on an adjacent hex. It's worth knowing. Alright, so here's our initial setup. We have Scrapburg. This title can be renamed if you like to do things like that. You could rename it to whatever you want. We're not going to because that's not necessary. We start off with a population of 4, which is actually 4,750. The way that the game works is you have to have at least each 1,000 population lets you build one building. So as we're growing from 4,750 up to 5,000, once we hit 5,000, we'll be able to add a 5th building to this area. Right now we have 3, so we can build another one right now, but then the next turn, we may or may not actually have the capacity to add another building to our system, to our thing here. So let's start off with what? We will start off with the exploration a bit. Well, I suppose we should actually talk about the god. So this is the various gods that are available in the game. There are 8, and we are more aligned with Fervus because we have that Favor of Fervus, that trait. So we start off aligned in this direction. Because we have 30 favor with Fervus, it also kind of pulls us towards Crypta and Lunord. And then we have barely anything here. We're actually getting a little bit negative here. Indifference, -4. So you can only really work your way towards 3 gods. And because we chose Fervus, we get to work with Crypta, Fervus, and Lunord. Obviously, because we're 30 in this direction, we're almost exactly 30 away from this guy, from Daros. And we're -23 with Agrella and Helia. What this mechanic does is it just allows you to have more styles of play. You know, maybe one playthrough you play and you align yourself with Fervus, and then you align yourself with Crypta. Then in another game you align yourself with Helia, and that completely changes the available spells that you can use. There are 3 different categories of spells. There's Wizardry, Divine Spells, and Sorcery. Wizardry is usually buffs and stuff like that, or direct nukes. And then you've got Sorcery, which is like heals and other direct nukes, but also you have some other things like terraforming, lower the land, turn lands into frozen lands, make more money, and stuff like that. The middle category, Divine Spells, are specifically related to those 8 gods. So for instance, notice how Agrella's healing is not available to cast. It says, Reputation to cast, -23 out of a required 10. So we can't cast this spell because Agrella doesn't like us. But we can cast Summon Skeletons because the red diamond-looking thing, which was which god again? Because Crypta has an 18 opinion of us. That opens up the ability to cast Summon Skeletons. Now, we do need to learn this spell before we can actually do it, but it allows us to cast it once it's been learned. Same thing with Moonwalk. We can cast that because some other god likes us. And we can cast Shield of Chaos as well. We have 30. This is the one that's with the actual god that we have the favor with. We also, because of that, get to start off with Summon Bears, which is actually a level or tier 2 divine spell that requires quite a bit of research to get. So it's a very powerful early game spell. Bears are quite good. So we'll probably be casting that pretty early on.
We shoot.
Indeed, that's what he says, and quite frequently. We're going to shoot these rogues
Release.
because we can, and they look, you know, they're jerks. Now, this game is very similar to many other hex-based strategy games, where each tile has a base move cost. Depending on the terrain, it may have bonuses or malices to production, or move speed, or increased defense, etc., etc. So, this is our melee unit, the Ratman Robbers. We have 5 walker, which means that it's on the ground, and it can move 5 tiles. These hills have a base cost of 2, so if we move here, we're going to go from 5 bars down to 3. And then we can just go to the next thing of Barren Hills. We can actually move right through this tile here. Even though this guy's here, we can't have 2 units on one tile, but we can walk through him into here, which will consume the rest of our movement. Now, having your units positioned this way is actually really valuable in this game. Notice how there's that little archer sign there? That's not actually letting you know that it's an archer. That's what this symbol is. But what that symbol actually means is that this is a supporting unit, which means that it can provide support once per turn, meaning that if this guy attacks our ranged or our melee unit here, he will shoot back as well, as long as we are within 1 tile of the unit that's attacked. So we kind of intentionally want to have him positioned like that. Alright, let's get underway and actually pick a spell to research. One of the spells that I like to pick up really early on is, where was it? Fertile Lands. I really like having Fertile Lands, but we might not need it in this map. We could also work up maybe Magic Eye just so we can see things a little bit better. It's not a bad spell to have. It's a temporary thing. Let's pick it up. And in Scrapburg, we need to build a new building. Now let's talk about the building tree. Now this part is a little bit different from some other games. Instead of being able to just build anything you want and build everything, where the optimal strategy is to just build absolutely every structure that you can afford, in this game you have a very limited number of tiles available, so you have to be quite strategic in what you put in each city. We're going to have quite a few cities, but we have to be strategic about it. So right now we have a market, which gives us +4 gold. We have a Goblins Guild, which allows us to make some units. And we have a farm. And there is a pumpkin farm here. Unfortunately, it's a sandy desert pumpkin farm, so there's a 20% malus to food production, which kind of sucks. But there's a 20% bonus to mana production. And the pumpkin farm actually gives food and mana, so kind of a positive and a minus. You know, less food but more mana. Not a bad thing. So the pumpkin farm can only be built on pumpkins. It can only be built right here. So we can't build a pumpkin farm in the desert hills, but we can build it here. Let's see. Plains, 20% food, 20% food, 20% food production bonus. That's nice. So we're going to look at the build tree, and we can see that we started off with our Goblins Guild. We have our farm. We have our market. And it unlocks as we go. So we're allowed to build like a Ratman's Guild, a Craftsman's District. Generally in the capital, I like to focus on getting the ability to make really good units. So building up towards like the training ground, for example. But you also have to consider the terrain that you're in. You know, are there significant bonuses to certain resources that might make more sense, for example, to turn this into a food city or something like that. Let's see. Right now we're making 8 gold out of the city, 3.6 food, 5 mana, and 5 research. We have no unrest. Let's go ahead and just add the smithy. And we're going to build it in the jungle. That seems quite fine. And it's letting us know that we have a new unit available. The Goblin Spearman can be built in the city of Scrapburg. Now up here is where we can queue up new units. We're able to make archers and spearmen. Once this town is at 5,000 population, we'll also be able to build settlers. Each town, every town that you have that has at least 5,000 population can make settlers. It's just automatic. So the spearman, we can take a look at some of his extra details. He has 22 hit points, does 10 base melee damage, has a walking speed of 4, can see 2 tiles, and we have to pay 1 gold and 1 food per turn to keep him. This is kind of nice. They automatically start with 25 melee resistance, which means they take 30% reduction in melee damage. They also have 100 life magic resistance, which just means that a living unit is going to take greatly reduced damage from spells that do life damage. Life damage is usually going to be used on undead units. So you could nuke this Goblin Spearman with a beam of life, but it's only going to do 25% damage. So do we want to add an extra archer or an extra melee unit? I think we want the extra melee unit. They're pretty strong. So we'll do that, and we got through one whole turn. Fantastic. See, did you see there how the archer shot? I have the animations pretty quick, but that is what they just did. So this is a minor bug, I think, but for some reason every time this thing pops up, you see that tooltip, move cost 1 base. It's showing the tooltip for the terrain when we're on the screen, so it's kind of annoying, but I'm sure it'll get fixed between now and release. So he attacked back, and this guy defended himself, and then this archer shot him as well, and he killed himself. So good job. We will send our Ratman robbers into this free rogues guild in order to loot it and make it stop generating new units. We got 20 gold. We can also look at that quest again now that the tooltip is gone. Your Highness, there are many bridges that connect worlds together. You can use one of them to visit another world. It wants us to use a bridge, in which case we will gain 15 mana. Now, these are all the various bridges that are available, all the different worlds that we can go to. Currently, we don't know where the bridge portal is, but we will find it soon. So, let's go back to the regular map mode, and yeah. So, I'm going to actually take a break here. In the next video, we'll just do nothing but gameplay. So, thank you so much for joining me so far, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. See you again soon.